Greetings and Assalamualaikum. My name is Basil bin Karanwar and my metric number is 207351 and we are from Group 5. We are about to present on urban poverty in Malaysia. Our topic, urban poverty, will cover on these dimensions and I will present on introduction part. Next, poverty eradication remains one of humanity's biggest problems. As a result, it was designated as the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, where Goal 1 concisely advocates for no poverty and to end poverty in all its form everywhere. So what is poverty? Social scientists and scholars have traditionally addressed the topic of poverty using two concepts, which are absolute poverty and relative poverty. The notion of absolute poverty is when household income is below a certain level. That is the new poverty line index, which is 2,208 ringgit per household, while the old one from 2005 was 980 ringgit. The idea of relative poverty is when households receive 50% less than average household incomes. So they do have some money, but still not enough to afford anything above the basics. All right, moving on to urban poverty. In today's Malaysia, urban poverty is becoming more prominent reality. So by definition, urban poverty can be defined as economic and social issues that arise in industrialized cities. What economic issue and what social issue? All right, later my friend will share more about it. So the proportion of the country's population living in cities increased from 30% in 1960 to 40% in 1980 and 60% in 2000. Natural increases in urban population, rural to urban migration, and the expansion of built-up areas have all contributed to the rise in urban population. And it's expected to continue to rise in the near future. So that's all for a brief introduction of urban poverty. Next, we will deep dive on this topic and I will pass to Faris.
Thank you, Basil. Assalamualaikum and hi to everyone. I am Muhammad Faris Fikri binti Zakaria and my matrix number is 205403. Okay, these are the three factors that affect urban poverty in Malaysia. The first one is lack of job opportunities. In Malaysian cities, the battle for work is becoming increasingly common. Employers today are willing to hire foreign labor in order to cut costs. The job market is now flooded with supposedly low-cost foreign workers, particularly in the manufacturing and construction industries. Local employees are less competitive than international workers when it comes to demanding high salaries. As a result, some of low-skilled workers are unable to enter the labour market to generate income. Next, migrants of low-income groups from rural areas are also one of the causes affecting urban poverty. The growth of new urban areas and the extension of the administrative urban boundaries attract many Malaysians in rural areas. The majority of migrants from rural areas lack the necessary professional abilities to obtain a competitive career. Furthermore, this group is considered to be uninformed of the information and expertise offered by government entities in the form of help. They are excluded from information and many types of support and development, as well as from the social and economic system of the city. Last but not least, the cost of living in the city is prohibitively expensive and also needs to be considered as one of the factors why poverty also happens in urban areas. Although the majority of the urban population's income does not fall into the low-income category, on the other hand, their income is out of proportion to their spending. This is due to the high and heavy expense of living in the city. The main cause is inflation. According to the news by Sinar Harian, in 2009, the city's cost of living grew by 3.9%, which had an impact on the poverty rate. This has been proven that the cost of living in the city is outrageously high if compared to rural areas. Thank you. That's all from me. I will pass it to Bazla.
Thank you, Faris. My name is Bazla Korira Muhammad, metric number 207362, and I'll be explaining more about the challenges in eradicating urban poverty in Malaysia. Urban poverty has been a serious issue in Malaysia for many years now, and as many problems do, it is inevitable for us to encounter difficulties in overcoming an issue. One of the many challenges in eradicating urban poverty in Malaysia is the issue of foreign workers. Our country has developed a high dependency on foreign labour over the years, causing competition on employment to become more and more intense, as well as demand for housing, health and education in urban areas. Besides that is ethnic issues. Due to income inequalities, racial clashes happened back in 1969 and 2001. This is a clear reflection on how deeply national unity can be affected if urban poverty is not resolved well and economic growth is not providing benefits for all ethnic groups. Apart from that is urban gentrification, which is the displacement of poor communities by rich outsiders. Many of the urban poor are forced to move out of their homes and they end up having to reside in low-cost, smaller, cramped houses as housing affordability deteriorates. Having to overcome daily cost of living pressures alongside dealing with unequal property ownership indeed has caused urban poverty to be difficult to overcome. Other than that is increased cost of living. Costs of basic needs such as food, housing and education are notably higher in urban areas as compared to rural areas. Majority of those residing in urban areas struggle to have adequate financial savings since most of their salary is used daily to support their standard of living in the urban areas. Lastly, stagnant income growth. Despite the rise in education qualification requirements, our country has been slow in wage growth, resulting in a widening of income disparities of the population, particularly between bottom 40% and top 20% of the population. As such, those without proper education face even more difficulties in settling for a decent job to support their lives. That is all from me. Next, we have Aiza to elaborate on the effects of urban poverty. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bazla. Hi, my name is Nurul Aiza binti Shaimi, and my matrix number is 205910. And now I will continue with the effect of urban poverty in Malaysia. Okay, the first effect of urban poverty in Malaysia is the rises in crime rate and social problems, as people that are affected are desperate for money. They tend to opt for illegal activities such as stealing, robbery, and many more for fast money in order to survive in economic hardship. Not only that, children of affected families will also be pressured by their parents' economic and financial distress. Therefore, they will drop out of school at a very young age. And for this reason, these children will also tend to follow their parents' for example in order to get some pocket money. So the cycles will continue. Next, limited employment opportunities. Urban poverty is more complex and competitive rather than rural poverty, whereby rural poverty they can at least rely on their nature for agriculture produce as their source of income, such as fishing, harvesting crops, operating oil plantation, rubber tapping, and many more. However, for urban poverty, an unemployed person will usually have a hard time finding a job or a job that pays well. With that, the number of low-income households will rise, eventually affects their access to education, healthcare, house quality, surrounding amenities, and many more. Therefore, this outcome can lessen an individual's chances of finding employment. Furthermore, economic shocks and declining trends. When the level of price increases, it reduces the purchase power of individuals who buy commodities at current income level. Eventually, their money is spent on essential and inferior goods and services rather than impulse or luxurious spending. Therefore, money in circulation will be highly affected as people are not spending enough, hence contributing to oversupply of goods and inflation. Lastly, increase in government spending. As we can see, the government has spent a lot and taken a few prominent initiatives such as raising the minimum wage, subsidize essential products and services such as the price of cooking oil, rise healthcare security, and then help and encourage SMEs among affected people, and also provision of public transport infrastructure, which can be seen from the reduced transport costs as urban poor rely heavily on public transportation for commuting, and many more in order to reduce the effects of urban poverty. That's all for me, and I will pass it to Basil.
Thanks, Aiza. So, without a doubt, the Malaysian government has implemented several poverty alleviation methods, particularly in rural regions since its political independence in back then, 1957. However, in the recent decade, poverty challenges have spread to metropolitan areas, culminating in urban poverty. Because of limited financial resources and the greater cost of food in cities, individuals in the urban poor have little buying power. So, in terms of definitions, assessment, policies, and programs, there is a definite need for fresh approaches to poverty reduction in Malaysia. When developing innovative ways, issues of inequality must be taken into consideration. All parties, including the poor, civil society, the government, NGOs, and the commercial sector must be included in creative responses to poverty. All stakeholders' commitment to alleviating poverty should be reflected in the policy framework. A credible and updated data based on poverty groups, programs, and projects that have been implemented is required. However, the poor must be empowered and poverty must be managed in order for all stakeholders to be part of the equation. When participative and consensual techniques to define poverty are adopted, the poor's perspective is incorporated in the creation of policies and programs. The poor may be empowered. That's all from us. Thank you for watching.